Being nice feels like the safest strategy. It feels moral, rational, mature. And yet, nice people are often the ones talked over, overlooked, delayed, or quietly deprioritized. This happens not because they lack value, not because they lack intelligence, but because of how human psychology interprets niceness under pressure. Here's the paradox. Niceness is meant to create connection, but unguarded niceness often removes urgency. And where urgency disappears, attention follows. This isn't a flaw in character, it's a mismatch between intention and perception. Most people don't ignore nice people out of cruelty. They ignore them because the mind categorizes them as non-threatening, non-demanding, and therefore non-urgent. And urgency is the currency of attention. From an evolutionary standpoint, the brain is constantly scanning for signals, not of goodness, but of consequence. It asks who might withdraw, who might retaliate, who might leave, who might change the balance if ignored. Niceness, when paired with emotional availability and predictability, quietly signals something else. It signals that access will remain even if attention does not. So the mind relaxes. This is where nice people misunderstand what's happening. They believe kindness should be met with reciprocity. But human behavior isn't governed by fairness. It's governed by leverage, boundaries, and perceived cost. And niceness without friction removes cost. Many nice people don't demand space. They wait, they accommodate, they soften their tone, they fill silence so others don't feel uncomfortable. And all of that sends a message, not verbally, but psychologically. It says, you don't have to prioritize me, I'll still be here. The brain hears that and reallocates attention elsewhere, not consciously, rather instinctively. This is why nice people are often told, you're so understanding, right before they're neglected. Understanding becomes permission. Another uncomfortable truth. People don't respond to how much you give. They respond to what happens if they don't respond back. This is not about manipulation. It's about consequences. When someone consistently absorbs emotional weight without signaling limits, the relationship shifts. One side becomes essential, the other becomes optional. And optional things are easy to postpone. Niceness also tends to blur identity. Many nice people over-explain, over-justify, and over-clarify. They try to make sure they're not misunderstood, not threatening, not upsetting. But clarity without firmness doesn't create presence. It creates transparency, and transparency without edges reduces psychological gravity. Think about the people you instinctively pay attention to. They're not always the loudest. They're not always the most generous. They're the ones whose reactions are not guaranteed. Unpredictability creates alertness. Boundaries create respect. Nice people often remove both. There's another layer most people miss. Niceness is often rooted in early conditioning. Many nice people learned early on that harmony was safer than expression. That being easy reduced conflict, that managing emotions kept systems stable, so niceness becomes a strategy of control. Not control over others, control over outcomes. If I stay agreeable, things won't fall apart. But adulthood doesn't reward the same strategies childhood needed. In adult systems, niceness without self-prioritization is read as low self-protection. And humans, whether they admit it or not, subconsciously follow those who protect themselves. Because self-protection signals value. When someone values themselves, the mind assumes there must be something worth protecting. When someone doesn't, the mind adapts accordingly. This is why nice people often feel invisible in groups. They don't interrupt. They don't escalate. They don't claim space. They wait to be invited. But attention doesn't go to those who wait. It goes to those who assume. Assume their voice matters. Assume their time matters. Assume their presence shifts the room. That assumption alone changes how others respond. It's not arrogance. It's psychological anchoring. Nice people often confuse being respected with being liked. But those are different currencies. Likability opens doors. Respect decides who gets heard once inside. And respect requires friction, not aggression. Friction. The willingness to disappoint. The willingness to say no without apology. The willingness to let silence do the work. When niceness eliminates all friction, it also eliminates signal strength. People stop sensing consequence, so they delay responses. They forget follow-ups. They prioritize louder needs. And the nice person internalizes it as personal failure. I must not be interesting enough. I must not be valuable enough. But that's not the truth. The truth is this. You trained people that access to you doesn't require attention, and human psychology will always take the path of least resistance. There's one more paradox worth sitting with. Niceness feels generous, but excessive niceness often asks something silently. It asks to be noticed. It asks to be appreciated. It asks for return. And when those returns don't come, resentment grows. That resentment isn't visible, but people feel it. They sense the emotional imbalance, and instead of leaning in, they step back. Because unspoken expectations create pressure. The solution isn't to become colder, or harsher, or less kind. It's to become less available without intention. Kindness works when paired with boundaries. Warmth works when paired with self-respect. Attention follows those who can withdraw it, not dramatically, not manipulatively, but calmly. When someone knows you won't always absorb the cost, they recalibrate. They listen sooner, they respond faster, they take you seriously. Not because you changed your heart, but because you changed the psychological contract. So if you're nice and often ignored, hear this clearly. There is nothing wrong with your empathy. Nothing wrong with your awareness. Nothing wrong with your care. But niceness alone is not a signal of value. Value is signaled through boundaries, self-regard, and consequence. And when those are present, niceness stops being invisible. It becomes influential. If this felt uncomfortably accurate, that's not coincidence. Most people live this without language for it. This wasn't about becoming harder, it was about becoming clearer. If you recognized yourself here, sit with it. Not to fix yourself, but to understand what you've been signaling. Because awareness changes behavior quietly, and quiet shifts last longer than loud ones. That's all for now.